Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer, and welcome back to Zwift! Hey, I'm back, finally. Yeah, it's been a while. So, unless you only follow me on Zwift, and even then, you've heard me say this before, I've been busy. Things have not been well with my mom and her health, and ultimately, we're buying a house. We've already sold their house. They're closing next week. And we're closing on a house possibly a few days later or 2 weeks from now. So it's all coming together. It's all happening pretty dang fast. And been busy. Very busy. And then also, the school year is now just a few weeks away from getting started. So volleyball season's getting started soon. There just could not be much more going on than what I have going on now. So, life has happened. Unfortunately, I've been feeling my fitness slipping away from me. It's getting worse and worse. Soccer is getting harder and harder to play, aka football. More and more difficult to keep up with. And it's been weeks since I've been on the bike. So, well, anyway. So, yet again, I'm just happy to be here, happy to get a ride in. But I'm also looking forward to moving because I've set myself up in a way, or preparing to set myself up in a way, that, for one thing, thanks, Brad. Setting myself up in a way that I'm gonna have a permanent setup for my office. I'm not sharing the office and living room. There's a lot more space in the house that we are moving into intentionally, and it's going to be a permanent office. Now, the office is going to be shared with my wife and my dad. But, this space right here is my wife's office space already. So, I already share that space. At least I don't have to share a living room anymore. But I'm going to be able to set this up permanent basis, and it's going to be so much easier because a lot of my time goes into setup and tear down. And that's one of the obstacles that makes it so easy for me to miss a ride when I lack time. And keeping this set up permanently is gonna really help. Well, anyway, what I'm going to talk about today, besides that update, is I want to talk about F1. It's been an incredible season so far, and this last race in Hungary was just amazing. I'm going to talk about the season a little bit. I'm going to talk about the summer rest period / transfer market, silly season. But I especially want to talk about that race in Hungary because, wow, what a race that was. Now, as for cycling, Carapaz, heck of a ride to win a men's road race. But my coverage in the U.S. and my schedule, I just have not gotten much. I have not seen much. I've mostly just been getting highlights of the Olympics and what's going on there. So I'm not totally up on things when it comes to the Olympics and the rest of the racing. Yeah, I've been able to see it. So instead of talking about cycling today, this is what we get. It's F1. Big F1 fan, and I've been so busy that I didn't even get a chance to pick up F1, the new F1 game that just came out. I wanted to do a co-op series, but finding the right person to do a co-op series with is tricky, and just couldn't muster it. So anyway, for now, I ride on. Let's start with that F1 discussion, because I think you've heard enough times me saying, I'm busy, I'm tired, I don't feel good, I'm exhausted, I'm just happy to be here. But, yeah, okay, anyway. You got the point by now. So, F1, straight into the race, Hungary. Then we'll talk about the other stuff. Never mind practice, never mind qualifying. The excitement started with a rain-filled Sunday where the rain didn't come. And this was so important. The rain didn't come until after the formation lap, after they were already on the grid. Now, of course, you still have one more formation lap, and they got that in right before the lights go out. But how much information can you gather about the racing conditions under those circumstances? When they went out of the pits to get to the grid, track was dry. And then everything changed. Now, first off, hugely unlucky for Mercedes, who were entering with a massive advantage from qualifying. The only 2 cars on the grid on medium in the top 10. Everybody else was on the soft. They were looking poised for a huge day as long as they can get off the line 1-2. Easier said than done, but if they could muster that, it was definitely looking like a Mercedes day. Clear run. Rain falls, circumstances changes, everybody's on the intermediates, and then you got to go from there. And wow. So first thing is, not everybody got off the line clean. Quite a few guys were struggling, some more than others. Bottas obviously gets bogged down, struggles to get off the line. So slow, just horrendous start from Bottas and others. He was not the only one. But then, oh gosh, who was that? Perez, I think? Yeah, because it would have been from P4. Perez cuts across right in front of Bottas moments before the braking zone. Spray immediately goes up into Bottas's eyes. I will give Bottas that much. That much. That Perez cutting across him may have impacted what came after. Then, of course, what came after is mostly on Bottas. You still throw your blame at him. Perez does nothing wrong. It's just circumstantial. And Bottas brakes way too late. And then wipes out what felt like half the field. Reality was not. But he certainly did wipe out 3 cars. Wipes out Perez, out of the race. Bottas himself, out of the race. Then he wipes out Verstappen and Norris. Norris survived to get to the red flag, but then couldn't restart, couldn't get the car fixed. So 3 straight DNFs there, and then Verstappen, tons of damage, which they repaired most. And I think that's an important detail. Most of that car was fresh parts when they restarted from the red flag. So it really was not as bad. It was not a half-broken car. And remember, a week earlier, Hamilton, same thing. He had damage. They repaired it. They got him back out there. And then he went on to win the race. Verstappen did not do the same under the circumstances. But anyway. And yes, that car was not 100% fixed. So I'll give him that. But it was not half broken. They fixed all but one part of that car. All but the barge board. So, the floor, nose, side pod, all replaced. All repaired. Anyway. Then, that wasn't enough. Stroll, further down the grid, does the same thing. Brakes way too late. In his defense, he desperately tries to get out of the way. And cuts across the track to the grass, where he then has even less control than he had. Hoping and praying that he's just missing everybody. And then wipes out Leclerc. That carnage leads to what follows. Hamilton miles away from everybody, but red flag coming. Ocon emerges second. Vettel fourth? Third? Latifi was third at first, wasn't he? Anyway, Latifi was fourth. Vettel was third. Coming out of that. But on to some of the other cars and the start, because the start was hugely important and doesn't get talked enough about, in my opinion. Hamilton had an amazing start. Best on the grid, it looked like. Alonso had a terrible start. He was well behind. Gasly had a good start, but Gasly got caught out to the outside, had to avoid everything that was going on, and things did not work out for him. Ocon had a very good start, and Ocon broke early. Ocon got out of it a little bit, gave himself a little extra room, and Ocon came out in second place because he was smart into turn one, because he was conservative into turn one, knowing that chaos would likely ensue. Vettel had a terrible start. Had a horrible start. Lost a ton of ground. But because he had lost so much ground, the carnage happened in front of him. And he survived and benefited from it. Same with Alonso. These guys did not have good starts at all, but they benefited from being in the right place at the right time. Mostly because they had such poor starts. So, Bottas was not the only one in that department. Now, red flag, bunch of DNFs. Oh, Stroll was out, Leclerc was out. You had Perez, Bottas, Norris, all out right from the start. Ricciardo had damage. Verstappen had damage. And then they go to the pits, they red flag, they wait it out, rain stops. They decide to resume the race and everybody comes out on the intermediates. Free choice tire at that point. They come out on the intermediates and the track had dried a lot. Now, the only reason why Hamilton isn't the easy choice for driver of the day for me is what follows. During that formation lap, there's no talking from the pits. You have to address things yourself. Now, they should have already talked about this in the pits, what to do. They could see that the track was drying out. They could see that they were going to go to a dry compound soon. They had to have discussed it. So, whether it's entirely on Hamilton, who does not pull the trigger and go to the pits, or whether it was a team call, I don't know. We don't know what that conversation was, but it was certainly discussed as a team, as a unit. Either way, Hamilton does not go against the team wishes or makes the call himself, whichever it is, he stays out. The bold decision to come in, Ocon. The entire race, and why I feel like I have to give him driver of the day, is Ocon made the smartest, best move at turn one. Comes out in second place as a result. Then makes the smart, bold, aggressive move to pit from P2 to change onto the dry compound. Now for him, luckily everybody followed, and it was the right call to make anyway, I mean, as we saw from Hamilton, but it was a bold call. And it was Ocon who made that call. And then it was Ocon who then, from there, made zero mistakes the whole rest of the race and benefited with what you obviously know, as long as you've seen that race, and I'm not spoiling anything for you. But Hamilton's mistake of not coming in can't win driver of the day. It goes back to last place, P14, and then fights all the way through the field to take third or second, however you want to call that. And would have won if not for Alonso. Just absolutely phenomenal drive. Remember, he was behind Verstappen. He got past him. He was behind Ricciardo, behind all those leaders, and he worked his way through the field in what was not the fastest car. Remember, mind you, the Mercedes is not the Red Bull. The Red Bull is the quicker car this year. Now, at the track specific, arguably the Mercedes was a little bit better than the Red Bull that weekend. So, okay, arguably it's the quicker, but barely. They were not drastically faster than the rest of the field, and it's the second hardest track to pass on. And as we saw from Verstappen, from Ricciardo, from Vettel, from Alonso, you couldn't get around cars that you were faster than. So Hamilton goes down to P14, and then it just makes an epic drive through the field. Now, the epic drive through the field should be enough to win driver of the day. But the mistake takes that away from me. But otherwise, that drive was mega. Oh my goodness, what a drive. It was so fun to watch. And Hungary is usually one of the more boring tracks, so that was phenomenal. And of course, they were dry from that next lap. If you hadn't seen, obviously, Hamilton, only car on the grid. Everybody went into the pits to change under the dry compound. They restart. Hamilton's all alone, takes off. It's like USA, 2007. Hamilton takes off alone, does one lap, comes to the pits, comes out of the pits with dry compound in last place, just off the back. Bad place to be. And he had a lot of work ahead of him, and he did a phenomenal job with that. With him pitting, Ocon inherits the lead. Vettel P2, Latifi and the Williams P3. Latifi did not have a good start in that race either. Latifi was in a bad place, but with all the carnage in front of him, he was able to find a clear line easier than others, and that's why he came out ahead. Others like, say, Gasly. Gasly had a good start, but he was on the outside. So then when Bottas comes across and they wipe out towards the outside of the track, he's got to go around that. By the time he rejoins, you've got the carnage from the second one as well. He's got to go around that. So by the time he gets out there and gets going again, Gasly was very much towards the back of the grid. Anyway, post red flag, post change to the dry compound, chaos. The race takes shape. A Williams, the slower Williams, massively out of position. Other cars, massively out of position. Guys higher up the order than they should be. Fast cars at the back. Ricciardo, damaged. Verstappen, damaged, but still clearly a much faster car than those around him. Verstappen got hung up behind Schumacher for 30, 40 laps in the Haas. Verstappen's car might have been slowed by the damage. But when he got clean air, we saw how much quicker he was. Yet he couldn't pass. Not enough people giving Hamilton credit for the work he did to move up through the order. Now, for me, the Hamilton's third on that driver of the day. Because of the mistake. Only because of the mistakes. Like I said, the drive was otherworldly. But that mistake was huge. That mistake cost him the race. Ocon, driver of the day because he came out with the win. And held off Vettel for a billion laps. Never had to hold off Hamilton. I mean, that never became a thing for him, though it certainly could have. And yes, I think Alonso deserves a lot of credit for what he did. However, in Alonso's case, a lot of people say driver of the day. He won driver of the day. Not for me. And not even close. Good drive. Very good drive. And his defending against Hamilton was brilliant. But it was a few laps. That was all it was. It was not an entire race. He was out-qualified by Ocon. He had a poor start where Ocon had a great start. He just avoided the crash where Ocon smartly avoided the crash. He made mistakes when Hamilton passed him. He outbraked himself. He locked up. And his teammate won the race. He got passed by two more cars there at the end and just went down the order. So, Alonso finished fifth, was promoted back to P4, but he didn't even get a podium. That's not driver of the day. Yes, it was great defending to slow up Hamilton, but there's more to it than that. It was not that he was on tires that were 30 laps older than Hamilton, and that Hamilton was a train that could not be derailed, and he somehow derailed him. No. A, he messed up and Hamilton passed him anyway. B, Alonso had just pit. Remember, Alonso was leading the race and had just pit. He pit, I don't know exactly how many, but 5 laps before Hamilton. That was it. Maybe it was 6 or 7, but it was not, I repeat, it was not a long time before Hamilton. He was still on fresh tires. He was in an undamaged car. He had every reason to be almost as fast as Hamilton. Also, to his advantage, Hungary is the second hardest track to pass somebody on. No doubt he defended well. No doubt it was a good drive. But he was passed by Hamilton. He was passed by Sainz in those final laps. Okay, that's not driver of the day. That's a B. He had one good stretch of 3 laps where he held off world champion in a car that was slightly faster than his own at that point in time. And that's it. He didn't do much right. He didn't do much wrong. But it was just a okay drive. Hence a B rating for me. And so many people want to love that rivalry. And it was nice to see. But that's all. It was nice to see. It did not suddenly make Alonso having a phenomenal season. Or a phenomenal race for that matter. So I felt that his effort was massively overrated. Massively. Anyway, moving on. For me, my candidate for driver of the day, who nearly takes it in my book, but because Ocon comes away with a win, has to be given second place ahead of Hamilton, George Russell. And here's why. George Russell had a very good start. It put him up the order a little bit. He didn't qualify particularly well. The car was just not quick. It wasn't terribly off the pace, but this was the first time all season that Williams could not get out of Q1, that Russell could not get out of Q1. And he didn't make any mistakes in qualifying. That's all the car had. So to even be in contention in the race itself was a huge deal. And Russell, some water here. Russell had a really good start. He was moving up, and then turn 1 came. And the carnage, he had to avoid it. In avoiding it, Russell came out of that in the back middle of the grid. I think he was about 9th, 10th, something like that. Certainly not in the top position. He had fast cars behind him, and he had even faster cars ahead of him. And meanwhile, his teammate came out of that carnage, luckily, because again, Latifi did not have a good start, but came out of it in 3rd place. So, Russell moving up a spot to 8th as soon as Hamilton had pit. So I believe it was 9th where he restarted. Well behind his teammate. Did the move of the season, in my opinion. He got on the radio and said, Nicky's in a good place. Do what you have to do to support Nicky. Now, this is not word for word, I don't have the quote in front of me, but it's pretty damn close, okay? And it came up on the radio, and it did not get talked about long enough because there was action just after that, and they forgot about it and moved on. I did not forget, but he said Nicky is up the order. Do what you got to do for Nicky. Sacrifice my race if you need to support Nicky. Pit me early if you need to pit me early. Do what you can to keep him off the order. He recognized what this could mean for the team. And he knew that positionally, it's a hard place, it's a hard course to pass on. And he knew that Latifi had a real chance at scoring some points. And so he did sacrifice himself. And guess who was like the second car on the grid to pit? It was Russell. Russell pit super early. Super early. And he benefited for a lap or two from that, but it forced other cars to pit early. And then it forced a lot of cars into two-stop strategies that maybe wouldn't have. And he really opened things up for Latifi. But you know where he was by the end of the race? After he had sacrificed his own race to support his teammate? Latifi, no mistakes. He didn't put a foot wrong. He did nothing wrong. Team did nothing wrong. But Latifi was down in 7th. Well, technically 8th. He'd been passed. Whether it be in the pits, whether it be on merit, Latifi was not fast. He didn't make mistakes, but he wasn't fast. You know who finished 1 second behind him after being almost 40 seconds down I think he was 39 seconds down on Latifi at one point, sacrificing his race to hold others back. Russell finished 1 second behind Latifi. He was much faster than him. He had come up on him very, very fast. After their final round of pit stops, Russell was 39 seconds behind. He covered 38 seconds of that. He outdrove Latifi the whole way, but he did not complain. He did not ask Latifi to get out of the way. At that point, he was holding off Verstappen in a Williams. Fastest car on the grid versus the second slowest car on the grid, and he held them off. And allowing both of them to stay ahead of him. Russell, for me, that was the drive of the day. He did what Alonso did, but did it throughout the race. He did what Hamilton did, but he did it while holding other guys off in the slow car. He caught up to people, he passed people, he was smart. He was not making any mistakes at any point, anywhere. For me, Russell, driver of the day. Because where was Bottas, the guy he's in competition with? Bottas didn't even finish, didn't even make it through the first quarter. Wiped out a big chunk of the field. Russell got those points he needed while sacrificing himself, and ended up still 1 second behind the teammate whom he sacrificed himself for. That was the drive of the day. As I finished the loop, so I'm gonna be done here in a second. As for Vettel, tough luck. Rules are rules. He had all race to know what his fuel load was like. He was in second place, driving hard, wasting energy trying to pass Ocon. He only had one car to pass. One. The whole race. Couldn't get around him. That Aston Martin is faster than the Alpine. Not by much, but it was faster. He had a million opportunities, never got past him. Then, the only reason why Hamilton didn't get past him was because he didn't have enough time. And Vettel crossed the line with no fuel left. That's his bad. Sucks for him. Really sucks for him. But rules are rules. And that rule's been there for a long time. And it's been enforced before. And it's always been enforced. And I think that there is zero reason why their appeal would succeed. Vettel's disqualified. Rightfully so. Yes, it sucks. And I feel bad for him. And I don't like Vettel. I feel bad for him, though. Because it does suck. But it's a simple rule. He violated it. Consequence is obvious. Disqualification. They have to test your fuel. Teams used to break the rules a lot. There's a team that just did a major violation just a year and a half ago. And they just about got away with it. They had to stop. You know who I'm talking about. So, cheating is a part of the sport. You need that testable fuel. That's part of parc fermé. You gotta get that car back with 1 liter. He had 0.3. Simple. He wasn't even very close. Anyway, what a race and what a season so far. This championship really, really shaping up. The hate between Hamilton and Verstappen is because it's close. And it's not between them, it's between the fans. And you know what? I'm choosing to stay out of that right now. This is enough. I'm so glad I got a ride in. I'm happy. It's been a while. I don't know when my next will be. It might be after I move in a couple weeks. And maybe I get one more in before that. But so much of my house is packed up right now. We're definitely getting down to the end on that. Alright, folks. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe. Join the conversation. Let me know what you thought of the race. I'll see you next time. By the way, I think it's Russell in the Mercedes seat over Bottas. Bottas having such a poor season. And it is through fault of his own. Everybody uses the bad luck thing. Excuse for him over and over and over and over again. When do we start putting it on him? For me, I finally have. Anyway, see you next time. Have a good one. Bye for now.